This video is brought to you by Ugreen.
About a month ago, I was lucky enough to snag a brand new MacBook Pro 16-inch spec'd out with the 32-core M1 Max, 64 gigs of memory, and 4 terabytes of internal storage, so almost maxed out. And while a lot of you have been really excited to hear about this new hardware, some of you have been getting mad. And I noticed this in my 14-inch MacBook Pro video where I came at it with the student's perspective. I was talking about what kind of students would benefit from this, albeit not all students, but a lot of people have been giving me a lot of shit for recommending an expensive laptop to people. And not only that, on the general internet, on Twitter, on YouTube, I see so many people just disrespecting others who have bought a maxed out MacBook Pro. And you know what? If you're gonna disrespect anyone, tech YouTubers are the ones. And it's fine because we are always buying this technology, and I understand why some people get frustrated at us just recommending stuff to people, endlessly. That's sort of our job. But I'm more concerned about people getting discouraged from buying a high-end MacBook Pro because others are like, oh, you don't need it, oh, you don't need it, benchmarks prove you don't need it. Today I want to talk about why buying more than what you need is not necessarily a bad idea. So beyond YouTube, beyond my Final Cut Pro 4K workflow, which is YouTuber oriented, nothing super crazy in the whole world of filmmaking and whatever, I am an aspiring creative professional. I want to do freelance. I like doing experimental projects. I work with animations with my boyfriend. We do sort of these product trailers based off of his designs, and I just like having headroom because I do a lot of compositing, I do a lot of experimental scaling, I add a bunch of filters, and eventually I'd like to shoot 8K, not to, have a 8K composition, but to be able to scale in and have more flexibility within my video editing workflow and possibly have multiple streams of that. So although I don't have the hardware for that now, I'm looking at buying the A1 for my workflow. That's the $6,500 Sony camera, which basically is the A7S III, the A7R IV, and the A9 II all-in-one camera, which can shoot 8K, which is the reason why I'm bringing it up. The fact that I have a computer that can do that I plan on keeping for at least 2 years, and I say 2 years because I'm someone who kind of has to upgrade and talk about the new tech because that's my job, but if I'm being real, if I quit tech YouTube tomorrow, if I just sort of fell off, this would be my machine for the next 3 to 4 years. And I am confident in saying that because with Apple, creating their own chips now, or at least vertically integrating them, they're no longer relying on Intel, which had that stupid TikTok strategy. I'm dying. I'm also not caffeinated, which is perfect for a rant. Oh my God. Because Apple is in charge of their hardware now, they do not have to release a new MacBook Pro every year, and they shouldn't because this one is so damn good. So this is an incentive to keep it for longer, and they're aware of that. So if you're gonna keep a laptop for 2, 3, possibly 4 years, and you know that your workflow might get more advanced, or maybe you don't know at all, it's better to have that extra headroom to sort of grow into, so then by the time you're looking to upgrade, you're not like hitting that threshold, because the issue is there are some instances where your computer is going to struggle if you do something really unconventional with a bunch of layers, with a bunch of compound clips, for example, in Final Cut Pro. If you're doing a lot of stuff, you're just layering more and more stuff on top of raw, possibly high resolution footage, especially if you're working with Blackmagic footage, raw footage, ProRes, all of that. Having just the maximum amount of power allows you to make adjustments that you wouldn't normally if you had, for example, an M1 MacBook Pro. I used the M1 MacBook Pro for about a year for all of my creative work, and while it was like 85% okay for everything that I did, the more typical stuff especially, I was regularly hitting the performance wall. Like I would try some experimental stuff like I mentioned before, and my laptop would have to sit there for a couple of minutes. Final Cut would crash, I'd get stuttering, I would get really long render times, whatever. And it just sort of stifled my ability to just kind of just execute, especially, in sort of a time crunch. And when you are a creative professional or any kind of just professional that needs high-end hardware, time is money. If you're developing an app, if you're doing 3D animation or, modeling or video editing in my case, you don't want to have to sit there and be like, okay, well, I want to make this change, so let me wait for my computer to catch up. That's what happens when you settle for the least amount of hardware you can get, I guess. That's what happens when you settle for the baseline.
But before we continue here, I have a brief message from the people that made today's video possible, Ugreen and their 100-watt fast charger. Unlike the single USB-C port found on Apple's $80 96-watt charger for MacBook Pro, Ugreen's has 4 ports, more specifically 3 Type-C and 1 Type-A for your charging convenience. And with the 100 watts of output that it has, as well as PD and QC compatibility, you can charge your new MacBook Pro 16-inch at a rated 1 hour and 54 minutes, and can charge an iPhone 13 Pro Max to 55% in just 30 minutes. It's also smaller than Apple's charger, a lot easier to carry around, and once again can charge up to 4 devices at once with all the built-in ports. Best of all, if you use code GAN100W15, you can get this bad boy for just $63.99. And yeah, for $16 less than the single port OEM charger, you get even more power throughput and once again more ports to charge all your tech. I'll leave a link in the video description if you're interested.
And when it came to the MacBook Pro M1, we really didn't have a choice. That was the only thing that was available. But we have to understand that the M1 chips are the baseline chips. That's why it's in the MacBook Air. And you know, that's a very casual consumer processor. And people were making, you know, some criticisms of me, oh, you don't need that chip if you're a student. Yeah, you don't, or I'm talking about the M1 Pro specifically, you don't need 16 GPU cores to answer your email or to, you know, do an Excel spreadsheet. But again, the more power you have, the more you can do and the more you can do in the future. So while you can settle for an M1 Pro with 16 gigs or 16 GPU cores and 16 gigs of RAM and whatnot, you know, you are limiting yourself in the future because again, these are long-term investments. Nobody buying a MacBook Pro is upgrading the next year. I am the exception. You should not follow my lead. This is my job. My cousin had a MacBook Pro for literally 7 years and she just got rid of it. She just got a M1 Pro 14-inch. But mind you, that was all she could afford. That is what she could comfortably get. And I'm not telling you to, you know, max out your credit card and buy something you don't need. For some people, the M1 Pro is it. That's all they need. So, you know, with regard to benchmarks and all that, you just have to see how some of the applications perform, you know, with these, you know, devices or these processors. There's so many videos going over, you know, actual usage case with these laptops. So check those out. I mean, I have nothing specifically that I can recommend. There's just, you literally use the search bar in YouTube and you can find a demo of some app. Somebody will have done that. But, you know, if you know you are working with intense renders and 3D models, 4K plus footage, all that stuff, having all of these resources available, having extra storage, having extra RAM is not a bad idea because yes, even though you will be spending more money overall, if this thing is making you money, you know, you might as well have the best. An analogy that comes to mind with regard to all of this is sort of like if you're a chef and you're like cutting through tough meat. You know, you could get, you know, the best bang for your buck sharp knife, and while, you know, that's good and it'll probably do the job, you could possibly buy like a katana of knives, you know, a very sharp Japanese one. And yeah, maybe it's like 3 times as expensive, but after a while, you might realize that you can do more delicate cuts with it. You can cut faster, and that time adds up after a while. And it also makes your job more enjoyable. You're not, you know, putting as much elbow grease into it. You're not sitting there as much waiting for the knife to do the work. You can just, you know, moving back to the creative work, you can just think of something, execute it, and it'll just render immediately. Like I was doing like frame interpolation, whatever the fuck it's called, you know, like video quality. In Final Cut, you can sort of add fake frames in between frames that don't exist. So that makes video smoother. If you shot at 30p, for example, and you wanted to slow it down to 50%, you turn on, I think it's called optical flow in Final Cut Pro to sort of fill in the gaps. And doing that, even with 4K footage, immediate. I know for a fact with the M1 chip, and I tried this on my M1 iMac, the baseline one, it's a lot slower, you know what I mean? And even with the M1 Pro, it lacks half the GPU cores, and I believe the video encoder that the M1 Max has is gonna be slower as well. And even though that's a great computer, if you're gonna keep that for multiple years, or you're working with a lot of 4K, multiple streams of 4K, you wanna get really crazy with that stuff. If you can afford extra finance payments in the future, if you can afford to put more money down, you know, again, you just are using the best tool available for your work. And while you may not use all of it right now, you are likely to run into situations where you do something super crazy and you can just do it. And the fact that you can without any worry about, oh, I could have something faster or whatever, is amazing. It's amazing, and again, it allows you to think more outside of the box. You don't want to limit yourself to how fast your computer is. And if you have a workflow that's more simple, if you have, I saw a tweet where somebody said, oh, like imagine editing with an M1 Max when you have an iMovie timeline. That's kind of true, right? Because if you have something basic, if you're doing basic stuff like 1080p video editing, obviously don't buy an M1 Max. But like if you know that you're doing like way weird stuff like I do sometimes, like beyond my regular YouTube workflow, I am trying to shoot short films. I'm trying to do VFX type stuff in the future. I want to shoot 8K, I want to shoot 6K, I want to do all this other stuff. Having this extra power makes sense. So at the end of the day, if you cannot justify buying one of these machines, don't shame other people for buying them because they know what they're getting themselves into. They want the headroom. They want this machine to last them a long time. It's sort of similar to the iPad Pro. It has the M1 chip, and although most people won't make use of it, if you're a creative professional and you rely on that device, it's going to be good for the next 3 years. I mean, hell, the iPad Pro 2018 is still good, and it has the A12X, which came out in 2018. It's still a fantastically powerful device. So that's the logic here. You are paying for, a processor and hardware that will allow you to do whatever you want, and this just turned off. By the way, I got a new monitor, and I'm going to do a setup video about all of this pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, that's my rant. I hope that this made sense. I decided to record this, again, when I'm not caffeinated and when I'm super tired, so I could just sort of just get it out here. I'm not saying to buy the M1 Max if you don't need it. There are genuine criticisms that, can be made about buying hardware that you don't need. But even if you're not going to use 100% of the capability there, it's never a bad idea to buy something that gives you more headroom, future-proofing, if you will. Because you're going to regret it down the line once higher resolution things become the standard, once, programs and the products or the services that you have to provide are, sort of judged at a higher standard. Things are looking better and better and better, compared to like 2016, for example, or just any 5-year gap. Like there's always going to be an improvement in just the way media or content or whatever you're creating on these computers, even apps, for example, games. I'll also say this, developers are really making use of these laptops, and even though they may not make use of all the GPU cores all at once, as apps become more advanced and the graphics become more realistic, they're gonna make use of that stuff. So, that's my spiel. That's my TED Talk. Don't shame people for buying hardware that they don't quite need yet. And if you're gonna make an investment, let's just say you're gonna spend $3,000 on a MacBook Pro, you might as well add an additional $1,500 to get the best processor possible so that when you keep it, you have all of that headroom to grow into. And that's about it, y'all. That's my rant. I will hopefully edit the most coherent bits out of this because I'm not gonna lie, I'm tired and not caffeinated and I'm a little pissed off. But you know what? That was the theme of this video. I wanted to just share my frustration here, and I might be wrong. I'm sure there are aspects or things that I have said here that are not completely fair. Leave me a comment if you have any actual constructive criticism for me. I would love to hear it. I'm doing my best to be an objective, sort of product recommender, if you will. I'm trying to let you or hopefully make you spend your money in an effective way that gets you a device that improves your life. So I think the new MacBook Pros, especially the high-end ones, for some people who need this hardware, I think they make a huge difference, and not only that, they are incredible devices. I cannot wait to cover them more. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for a setup video that I have coming and an iPad Pro video that I have coming. I've been really liking the 11-inch iPad Pro, so I'll talk more about that soon. Check out my link to Ugreen in the video description. And as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.